Hi everyone, my name is Jenny and welcome back to my creative space. Today's video, we are going to be wrapping up the month of June. In this month, I will show you Storygraph as I always do. I read 6 books and I had these grandiose plans of reading all of these queer books for Pride Month, and I've just been kind of struggling a little bit with life and like my mental health recently, and I've just not been in the mood to read. So, the 6 books is what I could really get in this month. And my frame of mind was that, I don't just read queer books in the month of June, so it's not a huge deal that I didn't read that much this month. So we're going to go into the books that I read. The first one I want to talk about is the 9th light volume of the Apothecary Diaries. This one is this ongoing series that I've been reading before bed, and this in particular, I don't think I'm going to rate this one. It wasn't wholly my favorite. I really enjoyed the first half of this novel where we are following Mao Mao as she is kind of furthering her career, but then there was a second half of it that was more of like a travel section, and I don't know if I fully enjoy travel. Specifically in this light novel, I feel like it kind of dawdles a little bit. And I think that could be because of the fact that I have consumed the story via animation and also via manga. And because of those aspects, the visual nature of those two kind of carry the travel sections much quicker than like words on a page do. And so I think it dawdled just a smidge. And while that is great for a pre-bed time story to kind of get me sleepy, as like an overall story, I don't think those parts were the strongest for me. Not that I didn't enjoy this one, but it wasn't like top tier favorite of the entire series that I've read so far. And the next book that I read this month, I have a whole reading vlog for. It is Immaculate Conception by Ling Ling Huang. This book was an anticipated read for me as I really loved Natural Beauty by Ling Ling Huang, and this one follows these 2 young girls as they become friends in this art conservatory that they're both in, and we follow their close friendship, and we get these timelines of them in school and then later now in their life that's more like present day with where they are as grown women and who they are within the art field. I go much more in depth about my feelings about this in the reading vlog, which I will link for you. But I think that there were a few different concepts in this book that I really enjoyed, but weren't explored to the fullest. The first half of the book felt so much of an exploration of female friendship, and then towards the end, we were getting discussions of bodily autonomy, of consent, and those conversations were interesting, but I feel like it was tacked so much on the end that we didn't get to delve into that. I feel like if those sci-fi sections that came up in the latter half of the story were taken to a different novel, I think that would have been better. And this one just focusing mainly on the female friendship. You can tell how beautifully Li Ling Huang's writing has just grown over, I think, like the year that Natural Beauty has been out, but it kind of fell flat for me, and I think that it was mismarketed as a horror. There were horrific things that happened, but I think genre-wise, it felt much more of a literary fiction, much more of a character study than it did on horror. I can see where those horror elements could stand out, but it wasn't enough so that I would label it specifically a horror novel. And then the second book that I read this month was Vera Wong's Guide to Snooping on a Dead Man. That book healed something in me. The first time I read Vera Wong, that book was very healing for me as well. But the second one, I was a bit apprehensive of picking up and reading, just because like the first book I read in the series was a 5-star. It made my favorites of 2024. It's kind of hard to compete with something that is a favorite, right? You have all these expectations whether you want to have them or not. We follow our main character, Vera Wong, who owns this tea shop in San Francisco. I believe she names the tea shop Vera Wang, like the fashion designer, to get more marketing in, and you know, genius on her part. But she's very silly goofy, and she had this murder that she was involved in the investigation side in book 1, and so she decides to do the same thing in this book. And while we are introduced to a new cast of characters and suspects in this one, I think Jesse Q. Sutanto does such a good job with bringing in those new characters, making you feel like you know those characters well, but also feeling that same sense of found family, of homeliness, of just like overall comfort, despite these being new people you are meeting from the people in book 1. And I think the reason why Jesse Q. Sutanto does that so well is that Vera Wong herself is an extremely strong character. And that is like the biggest selling point of this series. I don't think bringing in a new cast of characters and forming this connection with them would have been successful without Jesse Q. Sutanto really knowing Vera Wong as a character and having her be such a strong pillar and kind of glue for bringing different people in the community together. This one, if you can tell, was a 5-star read for me. And yeah, there's just something about the Vera Wong series, the amount of community that is created in this, the amount of love and care and attention that Vera Wong gives to all these people in completely different walks of life, and the different generations that she's able to bring together and heal is just so amazing. And I just enjoy how humorous the story is, how heartfelt the story is, and on top of all of that, the mystery is actually very intriguing. Like, it's to the point where I'm like, I'm on the edge of my seat, I'm gasping. When the reveals happen, it is very serious, it is very impactful, but she still has this amount of levity around the story because of Vera Wong as a character. The next book that I read was Patricia Wants to Cuddle by Samantha Allen. This one, I've just been in a horror mood, and I've been hearing a lot about this one, and it being, I think, more so in the silly, goofy lens of horror. So I was like, you know what? Why not? I've been feeling in a strange mood, so maybe a silly, goofy horror will solve some problems. The concept of this one is basically like The Bachelor. If you don't know what the concept of The Bachelor is, basically is like a dating reality show where there's one guy and then there's like 20 different women, and he kind of like sends one home every single week until like you get top 2, and then he proposes to one of those women and they get married and it's happily ever after. I don't think it's ever been happy ever after for any bachelor, but I don't really watch the show. Besides the point, that's basically the concept. But in Patricia Wants to Cuddle, we are following the point of views of each of the top 5 women as they're traveling to this remote island, and some weird things happen because there's this strange history about this island. People think that there is something in the woods that is like taking people or whatever. I will say that I think the setup was done very detailed. I don't know if I necessarily needed that much detail on how this dating show worked. Maybe it's because I already understood the concept of The Bachelor that I felt like we were kind of plodding along a little bit, but I did appreciate getting to know our characters, at least like the top 5 women, pretty well. We also kind of got a bit of a perspective from one of the, I think it's the main producer, and getting to see her perspective was quite interesting. But for a while, it just felt like a contemporary book about people in this island, and I was like, okay, like, when is the horror aspect coming? And I ended up giving this a 3-star. I think mostly because of the fact that I felt like I was waiting and waiting and waiting for some sort of horrific thing to happen. There were inklings of things that were spread throughout the book that like, ooh, look at how creepy this is. And I was just like, they saw a shadow, and it wasn't creepy enough to keep me intrigued in regards to the horror. But because we were getting so much detail about each of the women, I was like, okay, I'm interested to see how this ends. The ending wasn't as satisfying to me, but I think it was because of that pacing issue that I felt throughout the book, that it just felt like all of this horror was happening in the last 20%, and I feel like if we slowly introduce that horror, at the 30 to 40% mark, it would have kept me on my toes, and it would have been more impactful to the story as a whole. So while I did enjoy the concept and appreciated the themes that were going on here, I think it just wasn't my favorite type of horror. I don't know if it is technically like a slasher. There was just a lot of gruesomeness that happened at the end that I was like, I wish this was kind of spread out. I do highly recommend that you read it though, because it was such a quick read, and the drama of it all was actually quite interesting. Because it is that reality TV setting, naturally there's going to be drama, especially if we're considering like a US reality TV. There is a lot of drama that happens on dating shows. So I think Samantha Allen did a really good job bringing that atmosphere and that cattiness between cast members, and just the overall kind of like, this is not a place I would want to be. I think that atmosphere is really set up well, but I just wish that the pacing was done a little bit better for my taste. And then the next book that I read, I kind of slow read a little bit, and mostly because of the fact that this is the last book in the Windy City series, and that is Rewind It Back by Liz Tomford. This author surprisingly has become such a comfort read author for me. I think last year, whenever I found the series, I actually read book 2 first, and then last year I went back to read Mile High for the first time, I believe. But I've just really loved this sports romance series. We follow like a bunch of different athletes who have like this kind of found family friendship going on, but specifically in Rewind It Back, we follow Rio, who we meet in book 1, Mile High, and he is the defenseman on the Chicago Raptors hockey team. And he is quite young at the beginning of the series, but he gets to watch all his friends like fall in love and find their partner and blah, blah, blah. And he is like not necessarily a playboy, but he's not somebody who has settled down with anyone. And so I think his friends just make the assumption that like either he's very afraid of commitment, he has no game, he doesn't know how to flirt with people, so he can't get a girlfriend because he just is very unskilled in like wooing a woman, or something else is going on. And in this book, we do find out that something else definitely is going on. And that something else that's going on is that he's a little bit hung up about his first love, who was his next door neighbor, Haley. And we get to see Haley come back into his life in a really interesting way, because he needs to have his house remodeled. She's currently in Chicago working at this design firm, and he unknowingly hires her because his neighbor gets her house done, and he's like, wow, love the work here, give me the person's number. And when that person shows up, he's like, holy shit, it's my first love. And we get to unravel and see why they didn't work out the first time around. And I was quite scared of reading this one because it's a second chance romance. I believe last month I tried reading Wild and Wrangled, is it? And that's a second chance romance. And I was just like, not feeling it. It wasn't the vibes for me. But this one, the way Liz Tomford lays out the second chance, I was like, okay, this is an understandable reason as to why young people would break up and get back together again. There wasn't, is this really a spoiler? Because it's a romance. But anyway, nothing nefarious happens between the two, which I appreciate. And I think a lot of the times I'm afraid of second chance because it's like something crazy happens between them that I think is unforgivable. I can't root for the romance. But for this one, the second chance reason was understandable and I could still root for them. And I think just in general, because Liz Tomford is an author that I have loved and enjoyed, I just have this very like biased opinion about the books. And because this one is the last book in the series, there's just a lot of soft moments, not just between the couple themselves, but also between the found family and friend group that has been built since Mile High. I had to give this one a 5-star just because of like the sentimental moments in this one. You probably don't know this about me, but I'm a very sentimental person, and getting to see the little nuggets of Rio and Holly's like life when they were children and seeing how that plays into the foundation of their relationship and how they are willing to grow with one another, I think was such like a cheesy, cute, sentimental, cheesy in a good way. And it was just something that was so delightful to read. And I'm so sad to see like this found family go. I know that there is a standalone following, I believe, Miller's dad. That's not technically part of the Windy City series, but like kind of adjacent to it. There are inklings of new characters in this book that I am assuming Liz Tomford is going to write for her next romance series. Fingers crossed, because that would be really fun. I won't say too much about that. But yeah, this one was just such a delightful time. The book was a 5-star. Love it. Can't wait to read the standalone, and, you know, can't wait to see what Liz Tomford does in the rest of her authorial career. The last book that I read this month was Silver in the Wood by Emily Tesh. This one is a novella, and it follows our main character Tobias, who kind of lives in like the deep woods of this little village town. And this newcomer comes in. His name is Henry Silver, and he is a bit of a curious person, and he decides to go into the woods to meet Tobias and get to know Tobias. Because it's a novella, I won't say too much about anything else that goes on. It's a bit of a fantasy. It's queer. And it was a fun time. The thing is, because it's a novella and it's has like that fantastical energy to it, I wish that we could be in the story a little bit longer and we got to know our main character Tobias and Henry a little bit more. I feel like there are things that I wanted to come from this book that didn't fully deliver, mostly because of the fact that it is a novella. I would give it like a 3-star, like a high 3-star. I would read from Emily Tesh again because the writing and overall atmosphere and tone of the story was done so well and was very intriguing to me. I just wish that there was more to it. I think I just wanted more moments of Tobias and Henry together, and just like have more of that romance. It's not like 100% a romance, but there's obviously like romantic tension between the two. And I feel like if we got more of that and more of them getting to know each other, I would have enjoyed that much, much more. But you know, sometimes with novellas, you don't have that ability to put all those like little moments in. So I definitely understand. And the entire time that I was reading this book, this could just be me and my Realm of the Elderlings brain rot and everything reminds me of them, but it was really giving me Fitz and Fool. If you've read the Realm of the Elderling series, I won't say too much detail. It kind of reminds me of the beginning of Fool's Errand and that kind of slow reintroduction to Fitz and the Fool and like just like what Fitz's life looks like at that point. It kind of felt like that with Tobias, where he is in this like very like atmospheric woodsy cottagecore type of thing going on, and having Henry come in and be like, hello, like I just want to get to know you. It had that very playful light, but also this sort of darkness to it. And I think the atmosphere of Emily Tesch's writing is so lush. But yeah, because of that novella length, I think it definitely hindered my full enjoyment of the story. That is all of the books that I've read this month. I will say, despite having 2 5-star reads, I think just my overall like mood with life recently has really like impacted the way that I've enjoyed certain things, and specifically with reading, like I feel like I haven't been fully focused in it, so it feels slightly dissatisfactory this month. But I am glad that I ended up finding 2 favorite books this month, and next time I'll see you, I think we are going to be talking about the mid-year freakout tag, and we're going to do a quick half-year check-in to see where we're at. But thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!